this is Carly, and I am here for my first ever crossover video between the Fanboys Marketplace YouTube channel and my Annoying You with Friendship YouTube channel. So welcome to everyone from whichever channel you're here, and today I am very excited to be sharing with you a spoiler-free review of The Batman. Thanks to Fanboys Marketplace, Mike in particular, I had the opportunity to view the movie early in a private showing, and I want to tell you guys all of my early thoughts about the movie. Before I get started, I want to let you guys know that Fanboys Marketplace will be at RetroFest in River Oaks this Saturday from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. So you don't want to miss the table there. There will be tons of things to shop for, and it's going to be a really fun event. Now, before I get into my review, I know that some people don't like to have anything spoiled for them, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the very specific things that I'll be talking about in this review. I will not be going over specific plot points or specific character storylines. What I will be talking about is the overall cinematic theme of the movie. I'll be talking about the cinematography, the directorship, the acting, the casting, and the overall impression I was left with at the end of the movie. So if any of those things are things that you do not want to know about, if you want to be surprised by everything, then stop this video now and come back after you've seen the movie. I definitely don't want to spoil anything for you, and I am very passionate about my thoughts on this film. So please come back after you've seen the movie if you don't want to have any type of idea of what the feel or genre or vibe of the movie will be, because those are the main things that I'm going to be talking about in this review. With all that said, let's dive in and talk about The Batman. So the first thing that really struck me about the movie was the overarching feeling of darkness that is carried throughout the movie in a way that we haven't seen before. So after we saw everything, after we watched it from start to finish, I kept telling my husband this was a detective noir, and I felt that way right from the start of the film. And I kept repeating that in my mind. I kept seeing things that made me feel that it was a detective noir. And so when I got home, I sort of Googled to see if what I thought I was seeing was what I was actually seeing. And guys, there is absolutely no question that this film is a perfectly executed detective noir film, which is really outstanding because for those of you who are Batman fans, you know that the very, very earliest Batman comics were Batman detective comics. And this movie holds fast and true to the detective noir genre from start to finish in literally every single element. So if you go and look online to find out what a detective noir is, there are a few main components that a detective noir film has to have. It has to have an anti-hero, an inspector, a woman who is either leading the anti-hero astray or will ultimately become his love, one of those two things, and a man who is an adversary of the anti-hero or the inspector or the woman who everybody is working against. So there has to be a villain component, essentially, a woman and a man, and there has to be an inspector. So all of those things we know right off the bat are present in the movie. But there are also a lot of stylistic elements that I think this movie captured so successfully. So elements that you would see in a detective noir are things like rainy nights, mist, evolving shadows, layered textures of Gothic architecture and shadow, and a lot of detective noir actually use the environments as a character itself. And I think that we've seen in a lot of Batman movies in the past that Gotham is sort of its own creature, but we have never seen that before like we do in this movie. So you can really look forward to the way that Gotham as an element of the film, as the setting and the environment, also plays a really critical role as a character in this piece. And that is something that is very detective noir. So the detective noir genre sort of emerged after World War II. So there's also sort of this theme that sort of carries through those types of films of scarcity, struggle, and just general trauma. This is a post-war era genre. And there might be a little bit of melodrama, but overall it's people dealing with flawed characters and trauma and struggle and dramatics in a world that isn't fair. And that is 100% a present theme in this movie and beautifully executed through all of the characters. And since we're on the topic of characters, let's talk about the casting in this film. There was a lot of talk in the beginning about Robert Pattinson being cast as Batman, and people had questions, understandably, about whether he would be able to pull it off. It is very fair to question the choice if all you've ever heard of him doing is Twilight. However, that was a really long time ago, and if you look at Robert Pattinson's filmography since then, he has done Tony Award-winning plays as film. He's done brilliant art pieces. He has shown range from playing thugs to delusional lighthouse keepers to murderers to stockbrokers. He has literally run the gamut of acting roles, and when we see him as this Batman, we're not only seeing a seasoned, talented actor who has gone through his paces to get to where he is today, we're seeing a new take on Batman that is valid, it's fair, it's consistent with the history, and has never been done on film before. So this is a really exciting casting choice, and Pattinson absolutely delivers. So there's something that has been present in a lot of Batman films where sometimes it hasn't really felt right. So in all Batman films, you'll often hear characters talking about the freak Batman, that freak, that weirdo. But then you see Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, you know, doing their really sort of goofy, flamboyant Bruce Wayne and also being just super cool as Batman. And it's like, I mean, yeah, he's wearing a costume, but he's pretty intimidating. I don't know if I would call him a freak. I think that the Pattinson Batman sort of encompasses all of those things. So the cartoonish Bruce Wayne is sort of removed. This isn't a Bruce Wayne who's going to say, like, bring us to, I own the place. So we're not going to see that sort of silly, over-the-top Bruce Wayne, but we will definitely see a weird, unusual guy, which when you think about the vigilante Batman is kind of what you would expect. And there are a lot of elements of Batman's character, his backstory, and the place that he is in his history in this movie that have previously been unexplored in the cinematic universe. And this time it gives you something else to think about. So it's really, really beautifully done. And Pattinson, I think, plays all of the nuance of this character, the trauma, the desire for justice and vengeance, the single-minded focus, the, you know, experience and memory of his past, all together to feel like a real person. We're looking at a superhero that feels like a person you could meet in the street. It's absolutely beautiful. He's really, really good. Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman also brings so much humanity, and this is a different kind of Catwoman, I think, than we've seen before. I think that fans of the comic books will be really happy with the way that this story between Batman and Catwoman and individually how they come together from a villain-hero standpoint, from an anti-hero and woman standpoint, you know, from the man and his woman standpoint, where is there going to be sexual tension? Is there going to be what will be the conflict between them? She brings a whole different aspect to this character that I never anticipated, and it's really beautifully done. When we're talking about the Penguin, I was really excited about this character from the start. He absolutely, Colin Farrell plays the Penguin, and he absolutely is unrecognizable in this film. And I've talked about this in several of my reviews for the action figures here, that I have really become a fan of him over the years, that he has developed as a really strong, well-rounded, talented character actor. And I've seen him play roles that were very unlike his roles of the past, where he was sort of like this cool guy, beanie wearing, you know, ripped jeans, sort of like action, cool dude who gets the girl, into a dramatic, nuanced, talented, like, person who is interpreting character and then bringing something very individual. When Colin Farrell is playing the characters in The Lobster and The Killing of a Sacrificial Deer, you get the idea that no one else could have played those characters that way, and you feel that way about the Penguin. And I've never seen him play a character like this before. And the way that the Penguin exists in this story is absolutely unlike what I expected when I was going into it, in a very, very good way. The Riddler is completely different than what I hoped for. I was over the moon. Again, if you watch any of my reviews, you know that Paul Dano is one of my favorite actors of all time, and I was absolutely over the moon that he was going to be in this movie in any capacity, and Paul Dano does not disappoint. This is not a Riddler that you've seen in the past. And again, referring back to the detective noir structure, he is a very sound, grounded character in this environment, this storyline with these other characters, and still you walk away feeling like no one but Paul Dano could have brought this flavor, this intensity, and this just particular version of this character, and the movie is so much better for it. I also really loved the portrayal of Commissioner Gordon. There's so many ways that we see Commissioner Gordon, and I think that this movie deals with the back and forth that he feels between partnering with this vigilante and also being a man of the law. And we always know that Gordon is a good guy, and this is a good guy portrayal. And again, we're seeing the back and forth and struggle that we always see in Gordon, in how can I reconcile all of the parts of me that want to do the best thing for Gotham. It's really stellar. It's really beautiful done. Other casting that I didn't know about from some secondary characters that I was really excited to see, we got incredible performances from Peter Sarsgaard and John Turturro. So look out for those. They're absolutely phenomenal. So if you hadn't guessed so far, I am a tremendous fan of the casting and the genre they chose for this film. Now let's talk about the cinematography. So I feel like a lot of times when you're talking about cinematography, we're talking about the use of darkness and light. And I think it's very appropriate that in the case of this particular film, we're talking about the use of darkness layered on darkness, layered on darkness in the most creative ways, and in places where you don't expect it. It works so incredibly well, and when you're getting flashes of light and flashes of texture, those are coming from the external environment typically. So there are things like, there's so much rain, and there's so much, stormy night, so many stormy nights, and so much thunder, and backlighting, and characters shot in silhouette. It's absolutely stunning, and while it feels intentional, which sometimes isn't the best thing for a movie when something feels very intentional, in this particular case, it feels intentional and it drives you to the next signpost of the story. So it's taking you where you need to go, and it feels very much like walking through a story. Which brings me to the point that I'm sure all of you have heard, which is how long the movie is. So I mentioned this later. I don't want to criticize other reviewers. 3-hour runtime is a long movie, so I'm absolutely not criticizing anyone at all who feels like the movie was a bit long. However, there is no fat on this movie at all. Nothing could be trimmed. And what's happening in the 3 hours of the film is that you are being walked through a very deliberate series of events at a very specific pace that suits every single point that you need to know to get where you're going. And when I was talking with my husband after I saw the movie, I was like, a lot of people were talking about the timestamp on the film, and I just remember when I was a child and Forrest Gump came out, and a lot of people around me were talking about that at the time, and I just remember thinking, if somebody asks you what your thoughts were about Forrest Gump, and the first thing you say is, it was long, I feel like you missed such a wonderful opportunity to enjoy an incredible film. And that is exactly how I feel about The Batman. If the first thing that you're hearing from someone is that it was too long, then I think that that person might not have been the intended audience perhaps for the story, or maybe they didn't, it wasn't their vibe, it wasn't their type of story, but the timestamp was perfect in that everything that was in the movie needed to be there to create the world that we were in for that story. So I have no complaints about that either. There are a few things that are a little bit unusual, you know, not everything can be perfect. So the presence of technology in the film in several places leaves me a little bit confused about where we are in time, meaning at what point in history is all of this taking place. But there's a lot of times where people are using technology and it seems like it isn't commonplace for them. And then at the same time, you see a world that looks very much like ours. So that sort of was a little bit difficult for me. I also felt that sometimes Bruce Wayne's vulnerability was a bit too vulnerable. While he is a very well-rounded character with this like single-minded focus and all of the things that we come to see from a Batman, the vulnerability, which is I think a great thing to bring to this character, also at times can make you feel a little bit frustrated by some of the decisions that he makes. This soundtrack covered every single base that you could possibly hope for in a film, from you know, chorale singers to beautiful, like, you know, soaring piano concertos to Nirvana. It really was an audio experience that I think when you listen to the soundtrack on its own after watching the film will probably take you back into that experience again. It was just every single song was so impactful and meaningful in the moment of the film that I was just really blown away by the choices of music. This is, like I said, it's a detective story and it's a mystery, and the conclusion is surprising, which it should be. I think that where we end up is not where we expected to be, and the path to get there is engaging and powerfully drawn. This is a really exciting movie for me. I am always excited to see original, fresh, and well thought out takes on classic characters that I love, and this movie is that. I've heard a lot of people say masterpiece, and I only hesitate to say that because I feel like the word gets thrown around so much that it doesn't mean what it means. But if there were a masterpiece, when I return to this movie, I'm going to be looking to watch a masterpiece and see if I feel like it stacks up to that, because it is really well executed, you guys, and I hope that you agree with me on this. So I am going to be doing another video on this movie in a couple of weeks to talk about specific plot points. I'm gonna wait to give everybody a chance to see it. It will be obvious that it will be a spoiler video, but I want to talk about it so much more. I just don't want to ruin anything for anybody. So please, I will definitely say that for me, this movie is probably like a 9.5 out of 10. Definitely buy your tickets. Ignore the hype about AMC testing price hikes. It's $1.50. It is well worth it, whatever price you're paying to see this movie, I promise you. And share your thoughts in the comments. I'm so excited to talk about it more. I can't wait to see it again. And again, thank you so much to Fanboys Marketplace for sending me to see this movie. It was a truly awesome experience, and I highly recommend that all of you get this experience in the theater because it will blow your mind. Thank you guys so much for watching my first ever movie review. Let me know what you think, and if you'd like to see me do more reviews in the future, I would love to. But let me know what you think of this one and what you think of the movie as soon as you see it. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you soon with another one. Bye!